Thank you and welcome everyone to the February 15th, 2022 City Council meeting. Is there any additions to the agenda anyone has? Seeing none, that'll stand. First tonight is a consent agenda. Included in that are the minutes of the council meeting of February 1st, HRA, November and December of 2021, joint government meeting January 31st, Telecom Commission February 2nd, 2022. Also included are the regular bills. Any questions, or would somebody care to make the motion?
I'd make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Marv, seconded by Jim to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Department heads. Everybody's gonna wait their turn. Okay. Next, item number 3, proclamation of years of service for 3 fire department members. And I believe we have a couple of them here tonight. Eric Ward, Kevin Gatto, and Corey Miracle. We do have proclamations here that I think we'll take individually. And the resolution is as I will read. A resolution expressing sincere appreciation to Corey Miracle for honorable and devoted public service as a fireman for the city of Windom, Minnesota. Whereas the city of Windom wishes to express grateful recognition and appreciation to Corey Miracle for his untiring and valuable service to the city of Windom, faithfully rendered as a fireman for over 20 years. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Windom, Minnesota as follows. The City Council, on behalf of its members, city officials, employees of the City of Windom, and its citizens, this community extends to Corey Miracle its expression of appreciation for serving the city well as a fireman, and its best wishes for good health, success, and prosperity in the years to come. That a copy of this resolution be incorporated in the official records of the City Council of the City of Windom, and a copy presented to Corey Miracle. Does someone care to introduce that resolution?
I would like to introduce that resolution.
I would second.
Resolution, motion by Jason, seconded by Marv. Any discussion? A roll call, please.
Grunig,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Farrig,
Yes.
Quaid, Nelson.
Yes.
And that carries. Corey, please come up. Thank you for your years of service, Corey. It's been a pleasure having you on the department, and I know everybody's wishing you'd stay on a few more years. But, thank you for your years of service. Thanks, Alan. Thank you. Next, from the City of Windom, Minnesota, this is a resolution expressing sincere appreciation to Eric Ward for honorable and devoted public service as a fireman for the City of Windom, Minnesota. Whereas the City of Windom wishes to express grateful recognition and appreciation to Eric Ward for his untiring and valuable service to the City of Windom, faithfully rendered as a fireman for 29 years. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Windom, Minnesota as follows. The City Council, on behalf of its members, city officials, employees of the City of Windom, and the citizens of this community, extends to Eric Ward its expression of appreciation for serving the city well as a fireman, and its best wishes for good health, success, and prosperity in the years to come. That a copy of this resolution be incorporated in the official records of the City Council of the City of Windom, and a copy presented to Eric Ward. Would someone care to entertain that resolution?
I would introduce the resolution for Eric Ward.
Second.
That resolution introduced by Marv, seconded by Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Sherman,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Quaid, Faring,
Yes.
Grunig.
Okay, and finally, from the City of Windom, Minnesota, a resolution expressing sincere appreciation to Kevin Gatto for honorable and devoted public service as a fireman for the City of Windom, Minnesota. Whereas the City of Windom wishes to express grateful recognition and appreciation to Kevin Gatto for his untiring and valuable service to the City of Windom, faithfully rendered as a fireman for over 20 years. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Windom as follows. The City Council, on behalf of its members, city officials, employees of the City of Windom, and the citizens of this community, extends to Kevin Gatto its expressions of appreciation for serving the city well as a fireman, and its best wishes for good health, success, and prosperity in the years to come. That a copy of this resolution be incorporated in the official records of the City Council of the City of Windom, and a copy presented to Kevin Gatto. Is there a motion to introduce the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
I would second.
Resolution introduced by Jim, seconded by Marv. Any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call, please.
Nelson,
Yes.
Grunig, Sherman,
Yes.
Faring,
Yes.
Quaid.
Very good, and I'll give this probably to the chief. Sorry Kevin couldn't be here, but I'm sure you'll extend your appreciation to him on the city council and doing that. And how about a
Round of applause for Kevin.
The opportunity, Chief, if you'd like to say a few words up here about your retirees. Or you have the option of having them come up and say a few words.
You know, that's just what I was gonna do. Tonight isn't about me. It's about these two guys down here, so I'm gonna have them come on up and say a little something. Come on, get it.
Very good. And appreciation to your fellow firemen too for coming and supporting you guys. You know, this is, it's almost a family event as I've seen over the years, you know, and you guys get to know each other pretty well over there. So thanks to all you guys too. And once again, thank you. Okay, we have a ratification of fire department elections. Ben, do you got a minute? And then we'll let you get to your pictures after you brief us on the elections that you held for the officer positions.
Ben Derrickson, Fire Chief. We held our annual elections February 3rd, I believe it was. Annual deal we do every year. We have 4 positions: the chief, first assistant, second assistant, and third assistant. We had nobody running against anybody this year, which is, in our way we look at it, is a good thing, because then the department's happy with the leadership that we have. So I guess everything is staying the same as it was the last few months anyways. We did have one appointment this year with the passing of our first assistant, Lonnie Vollen, a few months ago. I appointed Jordan Bussa to fill that position. The department felt very comfortable with his leadership skills as well, and he's been elected to that position as well. So,
Just for the record, could you state the positions, please?
Fire Chief
And-
is myself, Ben Derrickson. First Assistant, Jordan Bussa. Second Assistant, Justin Harrington. Third Assistant, Christian Porth.
Okay, would the council care to make a motion for the ratification of the fire department elections as stated by our chief?
I'd make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion Jason, second Lisa, to approve the fire department election. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, and that carries. Thank you, Ben. Minnesota Department of Transportation is here tonight to tell us all about the Highway 60 corridor and the study and any information that they'd like to share with us.
Well, good evening. My name is Rhonda Allis, and I am the Planning Director for MnDOT District 7. And with me tonight is John Crawford, who has been our lead consultant on the corridor study. He's with the firm of KLJ. We want to take a little bit of time tonight. I know we've been in front of you multiple times, but maybe just a little refresher about kind of where we started, where we've been. But really, we want to spend the bulk of tonight focusing on really the last step of the corridor study, which is presenting to you this evening the alternatives that have come out of the study, and specifically focusing in on a preferred alternative for each of the segments of the corridor. And John will get into some of the details of how we divided out the corridor into segments and what those preferred alternatives are. But before we do that, just real quickly, I think, Steve, there's just a couple of slides that we're going to walk through. Yeah. No, I think this one. Yes, perfect. So really what kind of drove the need for us to look at a corridor study on Highway 60 was we, in the planning department, we're responsible for the development of our 10-year plan. And we saw coming into the program was going to be this section of Highway 60 through Windom. And it was coming in for a number of reasons. We knew the pavement needed to be addressed. In fact, we had to do some pavement work here just a couple of years ago to kind of get us through to that 2031 timeframe. We know that we're going to have to do some work on the Des Moines River Bridge, whether that's a rehab of the existing bridge or a potential replacement. And we know that there's a desire in the community for some safety improvements and looking at other modes of transportation, for example, bicyclists and pedestrians. So kind of taking a look at all that, we figured let's get ahead of the game, get a corridor study taken care of before we have to start scoping this project. So we kicked this study off back in September of 2019, right? Our intent was to have this done a while ago, and then our friend COVID happened, and things had to get put on pause for a little bit during the process. We were relatively successful with some of our work happening virtually, a lot of our TAC meetings, our Technical Advisory Committee, but really where we saw the virtual environment not working so well was that last open house that we tried to do virtually. And trying to share all of this information, this technical information in a virtual environment, we just felt it was better for us to push pause for a few months, wait till we could be back in person. And that meeting actually happened back in October, shortly after we were here to present to you the last time. So in total, our Technical Advisory Committee has met 10 times over the course of about a little over a 2-year period of time. We've had 3 open houses. We've had multiple focus group meetings. We've had a couple of pop-up events throughout the community. We've been in front of you 5 different times, as well as the county commissioners, keeping them informed as well. And really what came out of that last open house and our last TAC meeting was this evaluation of the various alternatives that we had been looking at along the corridor. And like I said, John will walk us through that here in just a moment. So there were some options that we considered and have dismissed at this point. A bypass of the city of Windom was an option that was not considered. We looked at utilizing First Avenue and the existing Highway 60 for a one-way pair. So traffic in one direction would use First Avenue, traffic in the other direction would use Highway 60. We looked at that, dismissed that as an option. Really, cost was the biggest factor with that one. We looked at the possibility of R-cuts along the corridor. So at some of the intersections, so what an R-cut is forcing traffic to make that right-hand turn, to go down, turn around, to be able to go to the direction that they wanted to go. We're not going to look at R-cuts through the corridor. But some of the items that are still on the table, right? So there's always the option to do nothing. We put back the pavement, put some new pavement down, leave everything else as is, and not change anything. Still an option on the table. The other options that we're still looking at are looking at taking the current lanes through town and kind of reusing those lanes, right? So we'd end up with 3 lanes with right turn lanes where where we have an opportunity to provide those. So we'd have one lane of traffic in one direction, 1 lane in the other direction. We'd have a continuous center turn lane throughout the corridor, and then right turns where they could be accommodated. So still looking at kind of that 5-lane section, just utilizing those lanes a little differently. We could look at keeping the current 4-lane through town. We might look at medians in some of those cases, right? So restricting turning movement still by using medians, so concrete barriers out in the middle of the highway that would restrict movements of traffic. We're still looking at signals or roundabouts as the preferred intersection control. What came out of the alternatives, you'll see that John will present here shortly, is signals are showing to be the preferred intersection control. And then looking at access modifications where needed, right? So we might have to look at consolidating some accesses. Are there areas where one property has multiple accesses that we could eliminate one? So just looking at access modifications throughout the corridor. So our technical advisory team consisted of 4 members from MnDOT, myself. We had our public engagement coordinator, Ann Wolf, who really led a lot of our public open houses and events, along with our consultant team. Forrest Hasty is one of our project managers. Forrest was actually the project manager who oversaw the latest overlay here in town. And then Scott Thompson is our traffic engineer. So that was kind of on the MnDOT side. On the local side, we had 2 representatives from Cottonwood County, the county engineer, Nick Klisch, and County Commissioner Stevens. And then representing the city, we had Steve and Drew on our technical advisory committee. So as I mentioned, since we met with you last in October, we held our last open house. Great turnout. We had received great feedback. And really, it was that feedback that we used to help us with that final step in the process, which was the technical analysis. And with the refining of those alternatives by the team members, we drafted an implementation plan, and that's what John will be presenting to you this evening. So kind of our next steps, what do we want to get out of this, right? We're at the end. We're 2.5 years done. And really what we hope will happen at the end of this, and we've asked the same of the county commissioners, I know that there will be a resolution that I believe Steve is planning to present at a future meeting. We would want the city council to formally adopt a resolution supporting the outcomes of the study. And we would ask that the county commissioners do the same. So hopefully when this is all done, we'll have support by our city partners, our county partners, and then MnDOT will begin. So this is a 2031 project. I'm assuming we'll start to scope it 3 years before construction, which means we're going to start scoping this probably within the next 2.5 years. At that time, we're going to look at updated crash data. We're going to look at updated traffic volumes. We're going to do additional public engagement. We'll obviously still be involving the city and the county in that scope development. The study will just help us kind of set the stage for, we know what we've eliminated, we know what we could still potentially carry forward, and we'll use that to help inform that scope here in the future. So with that said, unless there are questions, I'm just going to turn it over to John, and he's going to walk us through what came out on top in each of these segments for that preferred alternative.
Good evening. Thank you again for your time tonight. As Rhonda mentioned, we'll go through the preferred alternative that we've arrived at with the help of the TAC and their voting, that they used the public engagement feedback as well as our technical analysis to come to this conclusion. Wonder if you could move down a couple of slides. So we're going to walk through the corridor from the south end to the north end on Trunk Highway 60 first. And none of this information is new in the sense that this was in the concept drawings that we showed to you in October. It's just not that at that time we had roughly 4 different options that we were showing, so it was a lot. So now we've boiled it down to just this one preferred concept. There are still some minor details that would be worked out as a part of the detailed design that's to come in several years. So on the very south end, I can use this first slide to kind of set the stage for the whole corridor. Rhonda mentioned one of the concepts is to have one through lane in each direction with a center left turn lane and right turn lanes where we can fit them in. And that is essentially the cross-section that we'll be looking at for the entire corridor length from down south of US 71 up to about John Caldwell Drive. So one lane in each direction, center left turn lane, and right turn lanes. And then the project also incorporates roundabouts at 71, this one being on the south that we're seeing. There's also one at the north end that we'll look at in a few minutes. And then you'll see the traffic signals showed at 6th, 10th, and 16th streets. Yeah, thanks. Yep. That's a good point. As a part of the whole project, we can talk about the phasing of the project. So in the implementation plan, we broke it down into short-term improvements, mid-term improvements, and long-term improvements. Short-term improvements could happen before the main construction in 2031, so anytime from now until 2030 or so. Midterm is right in the 2031 range when the construction is anticipated to occur. And then anything after that is long-term, things that are less urgent, shall we call it. And so you're well aware of the restriping project that's coming down here south of 6th Street, to down just south of Highway 71 where we're looking here. And so that project that's coming this summer doesn't really include any construction of curbs or pavements. It's just striping and signing using the existing pavement. So it'll be a great test for you to see what this cross-section looks like. And if it's found to be operating favorably, you could consider that for other short-term improvements throughout other parts of the corridor in, say, 2023. And Rhonda has said that there will be a the seal coating that was going to happen this summer, but MnDOT has delayed that until 2023 so that you could wait to see if you like this restriping project. In 2023, that restriping could be carried further to the north on Highway 60. The exact limits of that could be negotiated in the near future.
Yeah, so we typically come through with a seal coat a few years, 3 to 5 years after a pavement project. So because we were coming up on the timeframe for Highway 60 through town to be seal coated, the request was actually brought up at our last technical advisory committee. The city said, well, hey, could you just hold off one more year instead of doing it this summer? Would you wait and do it in '23? And if we see that this functions well after we restripe it this summer down in this section, we may be interested in restriping through the urban area as well. So it doesn't make sense for us to go through, do a seal coat this summer and do the restriping just if the city is interested in doing something next year. So we were able to push that seal coat off one more year. So we'll wait till 2023. If the city doesn't want to see it converted to a 3-lane temporarily, or 3-lane with rights, then we'll just seal coat and restripe the way it is right now. But if the city decides that this is functioning well and you're really curious how would this work through the main urban core, that's an opportunity you would have next year after we do the seal coat.
So unless there are any questions about this part of the project, we could move on. We can come back to this too if there are other questions, okay? All right, so then moving a little bit north to what we've been calling the urban core downtown Windom on Trunk Highway 60, we'll show 3 diagrams that are lined up from south to north that show the entire segment. But again, the 1 lane in each direction, center left turn lane, with right turn lanes where we can fit them in. And none of this changes from what we had showed you previously, and this is on the website as well. And essentially, if I remember right, if you were to go look on the website, the first of the options within each geographic area is the one that we're suggesting as the preferred alternative. So this slide, starting on the south, shows the 6th Street signal. And I think the right turn lanes, there are some on the south end as you come into town, and then there's not enough right-of-way space for right turns from there to the north for the most part until we get to about, I think it's 12th. Yeah, next one.
So this just shows the light then at 10. Yeah.
Yep, so the existing traffic signal will remain. A note about interim improvements, if this were to be restriped like we had been talking, there would, for the most part, it would just be restriping and probably adjust the signage a little bit, and then the traffic signals, if you've ever noticed, the signal heads are lined up right over the center of the lanes. Sometimes it's centered over 2 lanes, but those would need to be scooted around a little bit, so some minor construction that would be MnDOT's expense, I believe, because there would be no construction on the city's legs really for that. Is that 13th up? That's 12th, right? And there are right turn lanes at 12th, so the right turns lanes kind of come back in as we keep going to the north. And then this last one for this area shows the potential future traffic signal at 16th, right near Toro. In general, I think the timing of that would coincide with the construction, but it would need to be verified to make sure the signal meets warrants. If the traffic volumes weren't high enough, it would be difficult to propose a signal because you can be introducing safety issues by merely stopping traffic. However, here with the pedestrians and lack of gaps for traffic to get out on Highway 60, I'm pretty sure it would be warranted. And it, in fact, as a part of our technical analysis, it is warranted in the year 2028. So, okay. And then moving further north, Trunk Highway 60 north of 71, it'll show the roundabout at the intersection. Again, a single lane roundabout, 1 lane in each direction with right turn lanes. And in this part of the corridor, there aren't any access points on the side of the highway, so we show a median leading into the roundabout. Gives a little bit of separation for traffic as they're negotiating the curve and the roundabout itself.
So this is Toro, right on this corner, and then this is Highway 71 north from this direction. This pink is, the pink here would be the center median he's talking about, and there, because the hospital's here, there's no entrances, because there's a frontage road on this side, and on the hospital property on the other side, there is no entrances, so they'd keep that traffic separated there. There's no closure of any access points, that kind of thing.
Is that considered a very large roundabout?
This is a typical roundabout. This is not a compact roundabout. It is MnDOT's standard large roundabout. It can accommodate pretty much any kind of vehicle and oversized, overweight. Yeah,
Semis.
generally the cab of the truck follows the roadway, and oftentimes the trailing wheels will roll right over the middle of it, or it can be driven over no problem. All right, if you want to move to the next slide, unless there are questions. So just slightly to the north of there, again, this continues the one lane in each direction with the center left turn lane, and there's plenty of room for right turn lanes up here. And we're also showing some potential frontage road or reconfiguration of access points. Many of these details would need to be refined as part of the preliminary design leading up to the staff-approved layout that the city would need to be approving as part of the municipal consent at the time. We're looking for ways to minimize the number of access points so that drivers have fewer decision points to look for cars. If we can consolidate the traffic to one point and make that one point an obvious and safe geometric configuration, it's safer for everyone. It also shows a potential cul-de-sac up next to, is that between Runnings and Dollar General?
Between Runnings and Jed Knut's.
Oh,
the truck.
Truck towing.
Yep, truck
Yep.
towing spot.
Yep. So it is a concept that has not really been finalized or discussed at length with the neighboring properties, although they've seen it. I think they were both at the open houses. And further to the north, it also shows the cul-de-sac next to the new car wash. I think it's mostly in place right now, with the exception of the cul-de-sac bulb isn't there yet. And the right turn lane, southbound right turn lane there will be constructed this summer, I think, by MnDOT. The reconfiguration of is that 24th Avenue across the street is a concept that would be beneficial to everybody to line up the traffic that's opposing each other. It's easier, especially if cars come head to head trying to get across the highway, if they're facing each other at the intersection instead of being offset, or somebody could make a turn and causes confusion. So a lot of these things are about minimizing confusion, access points, and number of decisions that people need to make. So then further to the north, during our project, things were changing, such as Quick Trip, and I know that the ownership of property up here has changed as well. So when we came up with this concept, we were looking to see if we could reduce the two access points down there into one access point. Now with the different owners, maybe there's something that makes more sense that could be sought in the future, and maybe it makes more sense to reconfigure on the existing John Caldwell alignment. I don't think it really matters which location, just if we can reduce it to one point.
Yeah, from 2 access points to 1 is really
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, any questions on these as we go through it?
Just a quick question. When does aesthetics come up?
Aesthetics would be a part of the preliminary design and the layout. So if the project is planned to be constructed in 2031, it's about 6 years in advance of that when the pre-design would be happening, working up to the layout. So anywhere from, what's that, 2025
Late 24 to early 25.
is when it would start.
Yeah.
And what kind of input is considered? Who makes those decisions, and how does that work?
So what we'll do, so the first step in our scoping process, the planning section actually comes out and meets with the communities, and we sit down and we have a whole list of questions we talk through. In this case, a lot of those questions have been answered through the study, but we'll still engage with the city and the county and ask you know, there could be a lot that happens between now and 2025 or 2026. So where are we seeing, you know, are there additional issues that we maybe didn't capture during the study that we want to document? But one of those things that we talk about is we ask about the need or want for aesthetic improvements. So especially if we end up with the roundabouts flanking kind of both ends of the corridor, that's a nice way to do some kind of like welcoming to the community, right? So we can look at, is the city interested in decorative lighting? Do they want to have, you know, banners that they could display at different times throughout the year? The problem that we run into when it comes to aesthetics is we can spend a very minimal amount of our budget on aesthetic improvements, and most of that falls on the city. So it's just something to be aware of as you look at your cost participation in the project. Aesthetic improvements typically, and I don't recall offhand what percentage of our budget we can spend on aesthetic improvements, but it's not a lot. Now, again, our cost participation policy could change between now and then too. So a lot of kind of crystal ball stuff at this point, but it's when we would come out and start to meet with the city before our project manager starts to really get into the detailed scope of the project, where we would start to talk about those types of questions, like what do you want to see for aesthetic improvements? You know, maybe the Veterans Memorial will be up at that time, and there'll be a great opportunity to do something over in that area. Or yeah, so we'll definitely be back at your door as we start to scope the project.
So that was the end of the slides that we have for the center left turn lane and the 1 lane in each direction segment. So any questions about that, or we can move through the other parts of the project and come back to those, of course. So Trunk Highway 71 on the south, this is a quick conversation down here with the railroad tunnel. The cost to replace that is very high, and the issues down there are very little. So quick dismissal of doing anything, so no change, basically just maintain it in the future.
The tech committee had 100% agreement on this one.
Yeah, that was an easy one.
It might be the easy one, right?
Yep, sorry, we have to keep mentioning it. And I think the next one is 71 on the northwest. And up here, so this is in the long-term part of the schedule. And so no immediate needs to do anything up here. Sounds like there was some recent construction at that skewed intersection there. That, you know, the pavement is good shape. Their crashes are not a major issue. Traffic volume's not a problem. So in the future, whether it's 10 or 20 years, if it needs to be reconstructed, this is the concept that we believe would be the best way to put it back. Center left turn lane, 1 lane in each direction. It includes sidewalk or trail on either side of the roadway, and it squares up this intersection so that when you try to make that movement, you're not having to look way over your shoulder for a car coming around the corner. No change to access in this area. The little box culvert where I don't know if it's a river or creek, would need to be extended. Yeah, that would be all MnDOT expense. It'd be a simple extension. And then it connects into the roundabout that we've seen already. So then the last piece is 6th Avenue on the south end, also Trunk Highway 62. There's been some concern about pedestrian safety at the crossing near the park. So when traffic is coming from the west on 6th Avenue, there's a sightline obstruction from the bridge, so it's hard to see people. This proposal was, I think this was unanimous in the scoring in our implementation plan. Basically just small bump outs. There would not be the posts that we've heard about concerns with trailers running over them, so there would be curbs, and so potentially the curbs would be run over, but that seems less of a hazard than running over a post. And then the rapid flash beacon, you may have seen these, they're small yellow rectangular boxes that flash yellow, and they're only activated by people pushing buttons. So we would have a button on all four corners that anybody could push, and the light comes on for 30 seconds or so. And it's just yellow, so it's an advisory, so people know if someone's present. And the timing on this, to be honest, I can't remember if, I think it's in the 2031 construction. It could be implemented pretty much any time.
Yeah, we're actually talking about the possibility of adding this, at least the urban piece of 62 to the 2031 project and just getting it all done at one time. So we'd be doing Highway 60 and that piece of 62 in town. We just have to see how things shake out with our funding. We'll have a better idea of that by about mid-April, whether we'll be able to afford to add that piece in or not. And if we do, then we'd be able to do something in 2031. Otherwise, nothing in the program right now for this section.
Thank you. I sat in on the presentation this morning to the county, and you noted that these little pink pieces in the middle were essentially refuge islands. Now, with the bump outs coming and narrowing that crossing distance, is that center refuge needed, or is this just kind of a concept?
They wouldn't be required.
Because if there were questions on turning movements with the boat trailer or something like that, I could see the removal of, these center refuges. It's only a, couple of lanes, and so with the bump outs and then the flashers, I didn't know if that was, mandatory in the design or if this was an optional type of a thing and just shown in concept, so.
Yep, it's totally conceptual, and
Okay.
it's a really good point, Steve. And maybe the city will say, well, we'd rather not have the bump outs, we'd rather have the median refuge with the RRFB, the flashing beacon. That's an option too. It's kind of a, you're able to pick pieces and kind of put that puzzle together, so.
Yeah, I think the consensus was we just need to do something here to improve pedestrian safety, and what that is, we can still have that discussion, but.
And one thing I'd like to say about all these concepts is that Rhonda showed a couple of things that have been ruled out, and then she also listed a bunch of options that have not been ruled out. So we've come up with this preferred alternative based on public engagement, analysis, and then the TAC voting, some MnDOT, some city, and yes, there are differences of opinion, but when we put it all together, this one rose to the top as the compromise that generally meets most of the needs. And so the implementation plan that we provided in the packet lays out all those options. They're still listed, and so in the future, if something changes in the corridor or if you're wildly opposed, those other options are still listed. It's just that this is the one that we think is the consensus of the group that looked through all the information.
All right, so just to wrap up then, as I mentioned, we're at that point in the process where the study is complete. Our next step from a MnDOT perspective would be to hopefully gain support from the city and the county with that resolution. And then, we're gonna just kind of sit and wait a couple years till we get ready to start scoping the project. And at that time, we'll take another look at some of the crash data and the traffic volume projections and where are we seeing maybe some development happening along the corridor that wasn't here before, and what has changed. And so we'll talk through all of that again as we start to engage the city and the county in those conversations. We'll do additional public engagement related to the development of the project scope. So it's not like this was just we were here and now you're not going to hear from us till we're here with machinery ready to go. But it's just know that we know that there's a little time that's going to elapse between the study being completed and the project actually happening. So there's still going to be a little more homework for us to do, but the heavy lifting is done. I think we've really been able to say, here's what we know we don't want, and here are some things that we could live with. So.
Just generally, do you feel that you got lots of public input on this project? And what now has come out of that technical advisory group reflects or parallels kind of what your public input was?
Yeah, and I think if you go to the website, you'll be able to look. There's an entire section in the draft plan that's going to show all the different public engagement activities, how many people showed up, what were the comments that we heard. So it'll give a really nice overview of how many people had participated in each of those events. I know this morning, Commissioner Stevens even commented that he was involved in the ranking on the TAC along with Nick Klisch, and he made sure to note that what they heard at the meeting, at the last, especially the last open house, he said this very well reflected what he was hearing from the public for feedback. So I think they were comfortable. I think we're comfortable. I'm really glad we took a step back and waited and were able to hold that meeting in person. We were very happy with the turnout, the number of people who came. And it wasn't always good comments, right? And we take the good with the bad. There were people who were very vocal about certain things that they didn't like. And that's okay, because that helps us in that decision-making process too. But I'm very comfortable with where things stand based on what we heard.
Last call for questions. Very well done. I think it, I appreciate MnDOT, Rhonda, for coming down, and John, all the work you've done on this. I do believe that it was one of the first meetings, kind of where that three-lane discussion, or actually one way through town, right? But where that concept was kind of discussed a little bit, and at that time, you know, the comments I had were people were a little bit concerned, but does it make sense? You know, and I think that just continued on to what you have. And I really appreciate the public comments that were made and helped the whole TAC committee to come up with this. I think it was well done. Any final comments from the council? Okay, Steve?
Just again, echo your thanks to Rhonda and John for all their input and hard work on it. I know it took us a long time to get here, so thank you for that. And when we're talking about that resolution of support, the county did talk about it a little bit this morning too, and they were going to wait for the city council to act. So they wanted to make sure that you had your input as well, rather than, you know, kind of the other way. So they were going to look for us. So just so you kind of know that in timing, and we're probably going to be looking at something. If I get the template from John, we'll put something together and get it to you maybe for the next meeting. So.
Oh, that all sounds good. All right. Thank you both once again. Appreciate that and all the hard work that's been put into it.
Thank you. And I want to just take a moment also and thank the mayor and council members for your contribution. You guys had some skin in the game here too. You had to put up some funds toward this study, and I know that isn't always easy to come by. So your willingness to participate and contribute to it financially was very important to us to know that you're on board and that this is something that you're looking forward to kind of developing that vision as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Okay, a lot of information condensed into a 20-minute discussion, I guess. So, okay, we have a resolution accepting donation from Dorothy Van Norman. That's to the library. Was that a dedicated? Okay, no specific process. Or? Children's area.
Library.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and there is a resolution included in the packet that Steve had prepared. Someone care to introduce that resolution?
I would introduce this resolution to accept a donation from Dorothy Van Norman to the Windom Library for the Children's Library in the amount of $600.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jason, for introducing that resolution, and Lisa, your second. A very generous donation of $600. So with that, I'll ask for a roll call.
Quaid, Nelson,
Yes.
Grunig, Sherman.
Yes.
Farrig.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the, let's see, we are down to the resolution calling for the public hearing, abatement extension at 1955 First Avenue. Drew's here to,
Drew Hagee, Development Director. So at the previous council meeting, we discussed the extension for the one-year abatement for the Guardian Inn apartment. And there was a motion that was passed to have 1 year. The request was the 2 years. To do an abatement, you have to call for a public hearing, hold the public hearing. So in the packet, there is a memo on page 34 outlining the information. We did discuss this with the county board this morning. The county board chose not to have an extension. So, you know, the city and county and school can all decide to do different amounts for an abatement. You know, the program is nice because the program outlines 5 years for a new single-family home, duplex, quad, multifamily. That's something we can then market because they all adopted that. Anything more than that is approved on a case-by-case basis, and multifamily, again, specifically outlined that you could request additional years. This one has some different circumstances that we discussed, and that was the reasoning for kind of splitting what the developer asked for request and not doing anything was at that 1 year, and that again did pass. So if anyone has any questions, I can answer any questions, or else that information is in your packet. So we'd be calling for a public hearing to extend the tax abatement that 1 year. That annual estimated tax payment for the city is $6,058.
anyone care to introduce that resolution calling for the public hearing?
I would introduce the resolution.
Second.
Resolution introduced by Marv, second by Jason. Any discussion?
And this public hearing would happen on
March 1st city council meeting.
March 1st. Okay.
Roll call, please.
Farrig.
Yes.
Quaid. Nelson.
Yes.
Grunig. Sherman.
Yes.
And that resolution carries. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
Next item up, 2022 Federal Airport Project Engineering Agreements in plural, Steve? I didn't see that.
Yep, in plural. We have two. So for upcoming year, we have two federally funded projects, one being the replacement of our beacon. That's the LED or the beacon out there, replacing that with a new LED. We are keeping the tower there and just replacing the lighted head for that. And so that's one of these agreements for engineering. And the other one is to continue our joint and crack fill. We did that last year, and we had more cracks and joints that needed to be filled than we had originally spec'd. And so they want to finish that project off. It was important to the airport. Obviously, both of these are important to the airport for safety and maintenance. And so we are going to use some federal dollars to finish that crack seal project. And so there's two agreements on that. And as I noted, these are both federally funded projects.
Can we do these in one motion, Steve?
You could, sure.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve both engineering agreements for the, relating to the federal airport projects?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion Jim, second Jason, to approve the engineering agreements for the airport. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Resolution relating to reimbursement fund. Bond, not fund. Steve?
Just 1 second, I will get us there. Okay, when we were talking this year about our budgeting, we had a couple of, we had a fire truck that we're gonna be finishing off purchase here, hopefully within this next month. There was a discussion for budget for a couple of, or for some dump trucks. And then we also had the discussion on the cul-de-sac, new cul-de-sac that was discussed here out by Windom Wash. And so we had committed some dollars in the general fund to those things, but we also then had decided as you had decided as a group that you were gonna issue a bond for some of that equipment cost. And so what this is we will be getting that fire truck sometime yet this month. We're gonna pay for that with general fund dollars, and then we need a resolution to reimburse ourselves when we have issued the bond. The dump trucks, because of some of the supply chain issues and whatnot, they shut off the orders before the end of the year, before our final budget was approved. So that order did not get in. So we're waiting, I think John was getting the new 2023 trucks spec'd and getting that in. So we're not sure when those will arrive in 22 or in 23. And so I don't want to, we don't know the cost of those, so I don't want to issue that bond right now, not knowing when we're going to make that payment. So what this would do is this resolution essentially is saying we're going to make these expenditures, and we then are preserving our option to bond and pay ourselves back for these in the future. And so the projects, what I did is, and I included, and Todd Hagan with Ellers had helped me with this, but we're looking at acquisition of fire equipment, acquisition of snow plows, installation of utilities, so if there's something associated with that cul-de-sac, and then construction or reconstruction of streets. And the amount I had in that is up to $900,000 is what this resolution would be. I certainly expect some of these things to come in under that number, but I wanted to make sure we had enough flexibility to do that in our notice. So that's really what this resolution is basically a notice of intent to reimburse ourselves for current costs with a bond in the future.
And this is a statutory requirement, I understand.
That is correct, yes. If we don't have this in place before we make these expenditures, we can't really go back and reimburse ourselves. There is a small window, but I'd rather not test that window, and I'd like to do it before we have this expenditure, so I don't have to explain to the auditors and anyone else why.
Because you knew, I was just going to say, because you knew it was a state statute, would you please proceed?
I'd like to introduce this resolution establishing procedures related to the compliance with reimbursement bond regulations under the Internal Revenue Code.
And I went second.
Resolution introduced by Jason, seconded by Marv. Any discussion on that? Everybody clear what we're doing? Okay, Steve, roll call.
I don't know if I flipped my card or not. Nelson.
Yes.
Grunig. Yes. Farrig.
Yes.
Quaid. Sherman.
Yes.
Very good, and that carries. Next, 2021 annual report. Is this going to be as long as MnDOT's?
Not unless you want to go through it page by page, no.
Okay.
Okay, so in the link that you were sent with the council information, there was the annual report for 2021. You'll probably notice there's a lot of narrative now on introducing each department section. The PD takes pride in leading the way on that and had a very well-written and extensive report in their stuff. Telecom is working their way up and giving Scott a run for his money a little bit, but the rest of the departments have put in some narrative in there, and we've got all the year-end statistics. I think you'll find it very valuable. We'll use a lot of that information for that Did You Know column and section that we're continuing in the paper and working with the citizen on. So, but it's just a lot of good information to have in there, and so we bring that forward for your perusal and reference. And so I guess at this point we'll just ask for kind of a motion to accept the annual, just accepting the annual report.
Is there a motion to accept the annual report?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion Jim, second Jason. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have the resolution approving the amendments to the fees and charges schedule.
Okay, so every year we go through the fees and charges schedule. There's a resolution, the item is included in your packet. Everything that has been, turn your mic off. Everything that has been changed is highlighted in yellow for your reference. The one thing that this first thing I'll point out is when we had expedited licenses requests, we've talked about that earlier this year, and what to do for that. And so what we came up with as a proposal at staff was to basically have it as, because our licenses are $20, $25, things like that, basically double the fee if you ask for an expedited license. And what the expedited license means, that's defined on the other side as any application that's submitted after 12 noon on the day that the packets are distributed. Normally it's a Friday, but there could be a holiday or something in there, so we felt we give noon the day that the packets go out. And so that would be our cutoff period. So if it comes in after that or comes in the day of the council meeting, then the fee would be double what it normally would be. So that's the proposal for that one.
Let me ask the council, do you have any problems with that? Everybody's good with that?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay. And like I said, there weren't too many. There's a lot of them that are in discussion over the course of the year. So there were some changes to our utilities, water and sewer rates that were discussed at budget time. We've incorporated those. Those have been passed by the utility commission, so we've incorporated those into this schedule. So that's water, wastewater, electric, and then there were a couple of some new telecom ones, and Jeff was just getting those put out, so we'll get those updated.
Oh, later?
Yeah, at a later point. But council's accepted them, so it'll just be incorporated into this.
Okay.
You approved them at your last
did.
meeting, so, yep.
Okay.
So we're asking that council approve the fees and charges schedules with those amendments as we just went through, and then we will use that for the upcoming year.
Any questions? Is there a motion to that effect?
I would introduce the resolution approving amendments to fees and charges schedule.
Second.
Introduced by Marv, second by Jason. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Turn mine off. Grunig.
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Quaid. Farrig.
Yes.
Very good, and that carries. Personnel, there's a hiring recommendation for street foreman. Jason, did you want to handle that as you're in
Yes,
that
sir.
committee?
Yes, so the street committee joined John, the superintendent, and we had a couple of interviews. One was external and one was internal. And as it turned out, we ended up with the internal, who is James Schmenzrud, and he is the one that we are going to be offering the job to. And he'll be starting at step 7 and going up to step 8 after 6 months of probation. And that's where we're at right now. So we're looking to make this official. And he's already been offered and has accepted. And we're all good to go, as long as we vote him in, of course. Yes, and with that movement from James up to the foreman position, that creates an absence that we will need to make a motion for that in just a few moments about advertising for that open position, so we can get that filled as soon as possible. And John has discussed with us as well. We obviously have a concern about the license that they might hold. Whether it's the Class A that we need, and so there's some discussion about that because things are changing. Actually, they already started changing this last week. So we need the first motion to officially hire James Schmenzrud.
I'll make a motion to hire Jim Smezerud as foreman.
Awesome.
Motion Jim, second Marv. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Jason?
So welcome James to the team. Jim. welcome Jim to the team. He's not here tonight, but he will hear about this, I'm sure, even at the moment. He might be online. So now we are looking to fill the position that he has just officially left, which is, what's the official title, John? Maintenance worker, okay. And so that will be advertised here, so we need a motion to make this go into effect. Is there anyone that would like to do that?
Motion Marv, second Jim, to approve the advertising for that department worker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jason. Okay, 2022 mayor appointments and reappointments. I think a lot of these are reappointments. These people have and are currently and will be reappointed upon council concurrence. And the recommendation is to reappoint Linda Jackla to the HRA board, reappoint Carrie and Susan Ebling to the library board, reappoint Linda Stuckenbroker to the Community Center Commission, and reappoint Deborah Paulzine and Joanne Kaiser to the tree committee. Is council okay with that? And would you approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'd second.
Motion Lisa, second Marv. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Once again, still have one more for the Park and Rec Committee. I do have an idea on that. I did not get a hold of that person. So, Steve.
Community Center and Telecom.
Yep, Community Center and Telecom. Oh, we did. We had a resignation
Yeah,
there.
you had a resignation from Community Center. Virgil Meyer will be going off, and so we'll have an opening there. And then Telecom still had one opening as J.D. Palm. His term was expired and he didn't re-up.
Okay. And I hope it's down to that, although we have, it seems like we always have a few. Thanks to Virgil Meyer, too, for his service as he comes off that board at the community center. Okay, let's see. Speaking of boards and commissions, I would like to talk a little bit here, and it could be under old business too, but I'll do it under mayor appointments, is what I'd like to do. And that is for the ad hoc committee that we talked about last meeting. Is my recommendation would be to appoint Jason Sherman and Jenny Quaid to fulfill that ad hoc committee, which will actually just look at, and I'm going to keep this pretty narrow-minded here, is to discuss the library and with the library board and the community center board, some discussion on shared facility. Okay, those are the two buildings that are in discussion, that would like to go into discussion. Important for council to be part of that, along with those two department heads, just the two department heads, and they will each have two. Their committees can appoint two people from their committee or commission to this ad hoc committee. Steve will write up a scope for this committee, so it's pretty directed. And yeah, it's what?
I was just noting that was, I think, consensus of the council at the last meeting to do that.
And if you disagree, then talk to me. But a pretty condensed vision here, because nothing happens without anything going further with those two buildings. So that's where that ad hoc committee will stand. Is the council okay with that recommendation? I will consider them appointed, Steve. I don't know if we need a do you want to concur and make that a motion? You can. Otherwise,
Motion.
okay, thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
I'm gonna take Lisa's. I seen her arm coming up. All right, thank you. Okay, motion Jim, second Lisa to make that appointments, and that also included in that is the scope will develop by staff and given out. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. Okay. New business. I just have one. Jason, you'll be Mayor Pro Tem next meeting? Okay. What's that? I'm not going, no. That's, no. Anyway, I got some other business I need to attend to. So, any other new business? Any old business? We're getting close. Council comments?
I have none.
Okay, you were quick. Lisa?
I have none.
Marv? Was that last question, Marv?
I was just wondering who gets to be the actor in taser training?
Okay, we're looking also for a committee member for the taser.
Is it ever the chief?
The Good thing the chief's sitting in the back. Okay. Jason?
I was just going to say I was again reminded last night as we gathered for a community event, a dancing event over at the Bark, just how important it is for us to come together. And it was really nice to see so many people showing up, you know, not just supporting family, but just enjoying being in Windom. And it's really nice to see.
Thank you, Jason. Steve?
No, sir.
And I have limited comments tonight. Thank you all. Once again, thanks to our fire department, who was on earlier if you missed that. They do a tremendous job, and all of our volunteers throughout the community, the EMTs and our committee members, just sure appreciate it. City Hall couldn't operate, the council couldn't operate without all these other volunteers. So thanks to everyone. Hope everyone had a nice Valentine's Day. And what's next? St. Patrick's Day? That's coming up too. So anyway, all right. With that, we're adjourned by unanimous consent.